So once you have an internship or a full-time job, how can you achieve and maintain success in your career? This dynamic panel of top employers and managers will advise you what you need to know about examining corporate culture, maximizing job performance, managing expectations with your supervisor, and balancing work and personal life. Learn a little bit about networking and professionalism in the workplace and much more. Our panelists today include directors and executives from Gallup, First National Bank, and Union Pacific. And it's my honor to introduce our panelists today. I'll start with Ms. Liz Cook. She's a Director of Talent Acquisition at First National Bank. Liz graduated from Texas Christian University with a Bachelor of Arts in Business Administration. She majored in finance and minored in accounting and French. She has been employed with First National Bank for the past 19 years. She started as an intern, actually, in both the HR and private banking groups and was a marketing specialist in the wealth management group and served as a marketing officer in corporate marketing. She has been in the human resources area for the last 10 years, serving as the college relations and recruiting coordinator, a senior human resources advisor supporting the corporate banking group, and most recently as a director of talent acquisition group. As a part of her community involvement, Liz volunteers for Chi Omega fraternity, serves on the executive and fundraising committees for Heartland Workforce Solutions, and was a member of the Leadership Omaha Class 35, sponsored by the Omaha Chamber. Some of her interests include following the Husker football team and basketball, the Jays. I'm just teasing on the Husker football, and volleyball, playing golf, country music, exercising, and spending time with her husband, Sean, and her 3 boys, Evan, Nathan, and Ryan. The next panelist we have is Mr. Todd Johnson. Todd is the Global Channel Leader of Entrepreneurship and Job Creation at Gallup. Todd builds partnerships with governments, non-governmental organizations, and the private sector to create jobs by deploying Gallup economic and management science at the macroeconomic level across economic sectors. The first initiative, Gallup's Entrepreneur Acceleration System, started in Mexico in 2006 and expanded to the United States in 2010. Currently, Todd leads the development and deployment of Gallup's Entrepreneurial Profile 10, which focuses on identifying and engaging individuals with high potential entrepreneurial talents and provides the foundation of Gallup's approach to helping cities and nations grow and prosper. Prior to assuming his current role, Todd managed Gallup's Latin American operations in Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, the Dominican Republic, Mexico, and Venezuela. Throughout his tenure, Todd has served in leadership positions related to Gallup's global activities and operations. He received his bachelor's degree from Columbia University in New York and his master's degree from the London School of Economics. Both degrees were earned with distinction. Todd serves on the governing board of the Greater Omaha Business Ethics Alliance, the Heider College of Business Advisory Board here at Creighton, and the Jesuit Academy Board of Directors. He lives in Omaha, Nebraska with his wife Mary and their 3 sons, Edward, Charles, and Samuel. And finally, I'd like to introduce Mr. Pat Linden, Director of Pricing, Market Planning, and Pricing for Industrial Products at Union Pacific Railroad. Pat is a 2007 marketing graduate of the Heider College of Business, currently serves as the Director of Pricing at Union Pacific. His team is responsible for the development, analysis, and implementation of key pricing and market strategies for Union Pacific's $4 billion industrial products business. While at Creighton, Pat served as a team member and co-chair of the Creighton Business Symposium team and was a representative for the Heider College of Business to the Creighton Students Union. In addition, Pat spent a semester abroad in Spain and was a member of SIGEP fraternity. Please help me welcome our 3 panelists today. All right, so to kick off some questions, and we'll have, I'll kind of moderate some questions to begin with, and then I'd like to have it open up to you as students to offer a chance to ask some questions as well. But to put this in context, I'd like to kind of just start with our panelists in terms of how would you define professionalism? So what does that mean to you? Is that image, demeanor, behavior? What do you mean by professionalism, or how would you define that?
Liz wants to go first.
Thanks, Todd. I appreciate that. So to me, professionalism is how you show up every day, be it at school, with your family, at work, at an internship. And really, to me, what defines professionalism is your attitude, your dress, how you respond to situations that come your way, and making sure that you really think through how you handle everything specifically to make sure that you're giving your best foot forward. So to me, professionalism is really broad and can show up in your personal life. I'd also mention social media on this as well. Being in the recruiting field, you know, recruiters do look at your social media, be it LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram, or I don't know about Snapchat, but we'll find a way. So just recall that really professionalism should be something that's woven throughout your daily life.
Todd would like to go second.
I'm going to try to answer with a bunch of one line, one word. Respect, body language, I guess that's 2. Attitude, nobility, timeliness, and loyalty.
Okay, so being from a similar generation as all of you, professionalism can be defined a lot of different ways, and I think it's important to have some context. For me, professionalism, when I deal with people of a similar generation versus people of a different generation, all of those things that Todd just said are absolutely pivotal. But I think sometimes our generation gets looked at as, you know, maybe we slack or we, you know, feel like people are obligated to give us things like that. And it's being aware of that. And then making sure that you're doing everything you can to make sure that that isn't a barrier for you. Professionalism, just on a very basic level for me, is someone that's willing to work their butt off every single day, that doesn't expect or feel like they deserve anything. And maybe that's an old school way of thinking because, you know, maybe maybe we work our butts off and we think we deserve something, but at the end of the day, you're working for a company, you're working for the bottom line, and the best thing that you can do is just keep your head down and grind. And to me, everything that these guys have said is absolutely true, but I love the most professional people I work with are the people that just go to work and put in the right effort every day.
What would you say are the 3 most important characteristics of professionalism? For example, ethics, responsibility, commitment, honesty, confidentiality. Any other characteristics that you would use to define, and Todd, you mentioned a couple of one-liners already, but anything else that you would define in terms of professionalism in the workplace?
I've been at Gallup for 21 years, and something that I've noticed repeatedly amongst our highest performers, I'm going back to the word loyalty. You know, loyalty to your coworkers, loyalty to your customers. You know, integrity fits under that word. There's an old expression: would you rather have somebody smart or loyal? And it's a rhetorical question. Loyalty.
Liz, you mentioned a little bit about social media, but in terms of in the workplace, what are the rules of the game when it comes to social media in the workplace, and how important of a role does social media play in one's career reputation?
You guys know this. You're smart. You're at Creighton. God, be careful. And with, I'll fold email up under that. You know, be really careful. If you write it down once, just assume it's going all company. It's a really good assumption. Be careful with email humor. You know, you might think it's funny going out, but there should be a little button icon on email that says, "I've had a cocktail." That would save a lot of careers around the world because people think they're being funny and it's not funny the next day or in a different audience. So just please, please, please. I've got 3 teenage boys. I say this every single day. Be careful.
Liz, you want to add something? I think that is so good. And I didn't really understand. So I just started recruiting at UP for Creighton, and I didn't really understand the social media thing because I think I kind of got in just before, thank God. But when recruiting this year, I actually used Facebook and Instagram to kind of figure out, and it wasn't so much like, I got to figure out what so-and-so is doing. It's like, who is this person? What are their interests? So that is like, that we're not kidding, because when that stuff does come up and you see something that's a big red flag, regardless of whether you have said anything to that person, you are already at a disadvantage. And that is just something that, not to frighten you, but, you know, if you're posting at 2 o'clock in the morning how, you know, so-and-so is a jerk, like that doesn't help you. I mean, it doesn't help you, period, much less it won't help you, you know, in a professional atmosphere.
about social media, one of the things I'm looking for is not like, oops, I can catch you on something. It's more about your character. Because a lot of what you post and a lot of the people that you surround yourselves with and a lot of the activities you're involved in do define who you are. So to me, that's how I utilize it, and would caution you again on just posting things that you wouldn't maybe show to your grandmother or others.
What are some of the biggest mistakes you see interns or young professionals making, either in meetings or in emails or in the professional workforce?
I'll take a swag at that. Writing. I think I don't. I'm sure you guys are great, and Creighton does a great job. But every other school in the country misses business writing a little bit. Really, I don't know about you all, or if this is just me. As few words as you can. You know, the title needs to be appropriate, and especially the higher up the executive level you're working. You know, I watch people send our chairman emails this thick, and I guarantee you he doesn't read them. I try to have space between every line, bullet points, as concise and tight and quickly as you can get to a message. Just remove as many words as you can would be my advice to professional writing. And I see bad writing all the time.
So I'm going to share this because I'm guilty of doing this. Gosh, in the last year I've done this. So we'll tell you this, and you'll still make the mistake. It's just going to happen, but at least hopefully you'll remember this. Is sending an email to your manager, your boss's boss, whoever it is, especially if there's emotion attached to it. If maybe they're questioning you or you have something that they don't like, it's very easy to go, well, they just don't know what they're talking about. Or, I know I'm right in this. And I'm guilty. And in the past year, sending my group vice president, I wouldn't call it snarky. He and I have a unique relationship, and so we have that back and forth. But I sent him an email I should have thought twice about before I sent it. And he gave me some coaching and counseling, some much needed coaching and counseling. And he's like, I do this because I love you, which I don't know. Hopefully that's true. But really, it's just more about, thinking, especially if there's emotion attached to it. If you feel like you're being backed into a corner, think twice about it. And you will find that throughout your career. It will happen. So before you hit send, just make sure, hope to God the spell check comes up first, and then you can rethink it. But yeah, so think twice.
You'll learn this when you start having kids in sports and things. There's a lot of rules with coaches where you're not allowed to confront the coach for 24 hours. I think that's also a good rule in hot business topics. Things will look differently the next day or in 24 hours. So if in doubt, don't send it out.
Along those same lines, I send a lot of emails to myself, literally. If I need to get it out and I'm frustrated, I'll send it to myself and just save it or wait to decide a day or two if I really need to send that out. So
That's great advice. What are some of the first impressions you notice of college students in your work or area or organization? And that could be, image, professionalism, attitude, dress attire. It could be anything. Any particular tips to help them make a first good impression?
We have a few young associates that work in areas around me. They're the first ones there. And I notice it and recognize it. And they don't need to be the last ones there, but they're the first ones there. And there's something to be said about that. Rolling in at 9:30 is not cool, would be another way to put it.
one of the things I would say is attire in the workplace. So I think about my experience coming here to the career fairs at Creighton. And it's different than other universities by a long shot in terms of the way you all are prepared and show up, and you have your resume and you have your notebook and you dress the part. You're dressing for the job you want, not for the internship that you have. And so to me, a huge component of that is really professional dress and really making sure that you know what that looks like. So some cultures are more relaxed. And so keeping in mind that wearing a business suit to a more relaxed culture is also something you shouldn't do. So know where you're going, know kind of your role, and make sure that you dress professionally.
I guess I'll just add one thing. So they got the dress thing pretty well covered. showing up on time is something that I was just telling these guys about it, we struggle with a little bit with. I mean, I'm a part of a team that we're all under the age of 35, and there's 12 of us. And it's like we are really tasked with creating a culture that is in line with what the company expects of us. And so it's very easy to think about flexibility and trying to make sure that because I want flexibility in my job, and so the things that the company wants or expects, like being on time to meetings and wearing professional attire, like I may dress differently than my boss's boss, but emulating the people that have been successful and that's a really good way to kind of establish a good precedent for yourself, but then also a culture when you get to that point of when you're leading a team. And I take that responsibility really seriously because it's easy for me to want something myself, but then when I have people following me, that becomes really important that I set the right perspective and right standard for everyone.
So Jim Clifton, who's our chairman at Gallup, he'll and everybody knows this or should know this. He'll walk in and check your shoes, and if they're not shined, we were on a trip once early in my career, and we're walking through O'Hare. He goes, "Let's get a shine." I go, "I don't need one." He goes, "Yes, you do," and I never forgot that. So whenever I know Clifton's going to be around, you don't wear brown suits, and you make sure your shoes are tight. Little thing.
What are some ways you've observed interns set themselves apart and sort of be the rock stars? How can an intern help increase their chances of maybe securing a full-time job offer?
Be damn good. I mean, we interviewed some really great people this year that didn't get jobs at UP, and you first have to be damn good, and I'm sure you all are. I'm sure you're all very smart, but there are things that separate others from, and there are things out of your control, but then there are things that are within your control, and it's having the right attitude, having the right experiences, and focusing on understanding what the company is about and putting your effort and attention to when you're interviewing for something or when you have that interaction, keeping that in mind. And I cannot stress enough getting to know the company. That you may apply for 15 jobs in the course of going for a full-time job, but if you don't if you just blanket copy paste next company, then yeah, you probably won't get a job. But if you try to be the ones that you really want, go after those with tenacity to really and that's no guarantee either. I mean, at the end of the day, that's no guarantee either, but trying to be unique, to stand out above the 400 people that are applying for 3 positions, you really got to be that.
When I used to hire people in Latin America, I haven't done it for a while, but I would require them to bring me a page, not more than a page, on how they're going to contribute to the bottom line. And if they can't, that was kind of the end of the process. I think that's real important. The other thing I'd say about management is management is not top down. That's one component. It's sideways and it's up. If you're effectively managing, right now you should be managing your professors. You should be at some point in life managing your spouse. You should be managing sideways. It's a non-ending process if you're going to be successful. What's the old expression? Marry wisely. It's 95% of your misery or 95% of your pain or your happiness. No, I didn't get that right.
So I think about a Creighton senior that we were referred to us by Jeremy referred her to us, and she's done an outstanding job because she doesn't just come in and do what's asked of her. She comes in and brings suggestions beyond the role and says, here's how I think we should shift or change this, and here's how we can make it better, and here's how we should be more efficient, and why are we doing this? So don't be afraid to ask those hard questions as an intern, because I think when you hear Pat say going above and beyond and be damn good, that's what that means to me.
Any additional advice in terms for students starting their first 30 to 60 days on the job? What should they be focusing on? What should they be worried about? What types of conversations should they be having with their supervisors?
You used to send people over to see me in one of your programs. that hasn't happened lately. I don't know if I
leadership
got
program.
fired or.
Yeah, no.
Okay. Maybe that was an embarrassing moment for myself. But the advice I used to give when I was part of Jeremy's program was really spend time interviewing your manager. Management talent's very rare. Only 1 in 10 managers in the world today have the inherent talent to manage. 2 out of 10 can learn to get good at it, and 7 out of 10 are in the wrong job. They were individual achievers who were over promoted, or they became managers based on tenure. Neither of those two correlate to management talent. So to be successful, your manager is going to be a really big piece of the pie. So spend your time. Don't worry about the company as much as management track and your exposure to your manager. Really, really important.
So we have my wife, who also works at UP, which may or may not be discouraged at your workplace, but there's a lot of people that get married at UP, so I'm in a good place. But she leads and she trains our entry-level marketing and sales employees. And she has me, this probably because, well, I know why I do it, because I made all of these mistakes. She has me come in and give a 40-minute session on kind of the unwritten rules of UP. And a lot of these are not just UP specific, they're really kind of corporate rules that if you work in a corporate atmosphere, you just have to be somewhat cognizant of what the culture is. And what I would tell you is so many people miss the mark on the most basic things. And it's easy, and probably the best thing that I can tell anyone, if you keep this in mind, you will be okay generally, is that the atmosphere for gossip and thinking that you know better than someone else and going to tell your friends, and it's like that, it's a very kind of amateur atmosphere that can be created, and people that don't get promoted and then they're upset, and then people that have been there for longer than maybe the average. I mean, all of that stuff happens. And I think the one thing that someone told me very early on is that you don't deserve anything, and no longer are you as equal as everyone else. And so if you understand that, it's kind of sobering, but the way I like to think about it is that if you treat people with the same amount of respect that you expect to get in return, you generally are okay. And if you stay above the fray and try not to get into the dirty politics and the kind of the dirty back channel stuff, it is tantamount that you remember that. I mean, we struggle with it all the time. We have a lot of young folks, and I'm guilty of it too. I mean, we've all been there, we've all done it, but there is not much success that comes out of it.
Amen. I'm just going to throw a little data at that. 30% of the United States workforce shows up super highly engaged. This is all Gallup poll data. 50% show up and are 9 to 5, just kind of going through the motions, getting a paycheck. 20% are miserable people. They were born miserable. They'll die miserable. You'll see them in the workplace. Just stay away from them. It's toxic. They're like, they can't wait to show up and be negative and get you involved, and they feed off negativity. And again, they're destroying the value of the company. The 30% over here are creating it, and the game is kind of in the middle, shifting them. But you will encounter these negative people, and they'll prey on new folks because they want you to join their negative club. Stay away from them. They're miserable, and I've done some consulting where I can identify them, and the results are you should pay them to stay at home. It'd be a lot better for your organization, certainly your customers and other employees, to pay them not to show up at work. So watch out for the negative people.
So I have 2 lines, and they would be listen and ask questions in the first 30 days.
Thank you. How would you recommend college students or recent grads set performance expectations with their direct supervisor? Any advice on how to take advantage of performance-related meetings or reviews with their supervisor?
Set goals you can achieve. It's tempting to get all these lofty goals out there, and it might feel good when you're writing it down, but it's not going to feel good when you don't achieve them. So be realistic in your goal setting would be my 2 cents.
So I'd add performance is an ongoing conversation. It is not a one and done at the end of the year. And so don't be afraid to bring it up and ask your manager how you're doing. And you can also present your position specific to your goals, like how you think you're doing and how you're tracking. I also feel like managers that are really strong will give you just-in-time feedback right away when it's happening versus wait until a more formalized time to give the feedback, because that won't be as valued to you. So don't be afraid to ask for feedback. And then also just understanding your manager. Maybe your manager is one that's like, hey, if there's a problem, you're going to hear from me. But otherwise, things are okay. So I know this generation requires and wants a lot of feedback, but set those expectations with your manager up front.
We tell our folks that from the day you walk in the door, well, really not even the day you walk in the door, the day you've begun the interview process and you get a job, you are being evaluated. And a company of 46,000 people where I work, they have very clear succession plans. And when you come into a company and you think, oh gosh, it's this big, and I may or may not get lost, but generally what happens is you put yourself into a group. Your first year, 2 years, you kind of get yourself into a group and you put yourself in the lane that is either going to take you to a really good place or take you to a place that may not be what you wanted, and then you're spending a year or 2 or 3 or 5 years trying to get back into the place that you really want it to be. So, take work seriously, have fun at it, but understand that you're there to do a job. And that's really what you should be working for, because you don't want to waste a lot of time and energy and effort thinking about how do I put myself in a better position because I didn't do it when I first got there.
I go again. When you don't hit goals, don't make excuses, even though it's possible it was someone else's fault. I didn't get marketing cover, I didn't get technical support. There's a million reasons why you can miss a goal, and it might not be on you, but I've watched it. I've dealt with this on almost a daily basis in 21 years of working at that company. The excuses, it just doesn't work. And usually your manager, someone will know that, and I think you earn points and integrity by just owning it. And you're going to hit a lot of brick walls in all our organizations or wherever you go. Just figure out a way to get around them. But don't make excuses.
Very good. What advice do you have, or what are some ways interns or young professionals can network within the organization to help them become better at their jobs, but also maybe potentially create future opportunities for themselves?
How many of you love to network? Okay, I see like 10 hands. And half of you are liars. I'm just kidding. That's not true. It may be true, I guess. Someone looks at me and I'm very social and I like to talk to people and says, oh gosh, networking is so easy for this person. And truthfully, networking isn't that easy for me. Yeah, I have some things that are easier than others, but it is so critical to a career, to your personal life. Networking is not just about making relationships with someone that can advance you somewhere. It's making relationships with someone that can have an impact on your life. And that's a personal thing and a professional thing. And so if you set realistic expectations for what networking means, and it's, hey, I want to go meet 1 or 2 people that I can rely on for advice or mentorship, or maybe they can help, kind of move you through an organization. That's great, but you can't force that. But I would say set realistic expectations for yourself, but really try to go after it. If it's uncomfortable for you, find ways to make it more comfortable or have someone introduce you, those things that can be a better conduit for you to actually network. But networking is not something that I think comes naturally to a lot of people, and sometimes you just got to work at it and get some help along the way.
And I think social media's got that term all wacky. I get probably 10 requests a day on LinkedIn from people I don't know. And I don't report them as spam, but I certainly don't let them in. I heard someone wise once say, if you think they're in your network and they won't call you back in a 24-hour period, they're not. So that's kind of an interesting thought as it regards to that. The way I would recommend, I agree with everything you said, play to the ego of some of the senior folks. I've had newer folks come in. I just became like an older guy just almost within weeks ago. It's been a strange metamorphosis. But the younger crews will come in and say, tell us about the early days of your career. And, you know, play to the ego is a good strategy. Works on me.
So to me, networking is through every interaction, because you never know when you're going to need your peer, your coworker, your friend in another group or area of the business and another company. So I know that for some of you that are introverts, it might take a lot of energy. And even for extroverts, it might take a lot of energy. But I think it's well worth the time that you spend. And I would really cast your net widely. And then to me, this is a really good thing to put a goal around as you're getting started in your career. Like, I'm going to try to network or meet X number of people a month. And I think that will really help you and shape your business world and experience.
One of my mentors in the community told me just last week, and it fits here. It was, I thought, really profound. He said, make your friends before you need them.
What have your experiences been?
For effect. Make your friends before you need them.
Mic drop. Okay, we got it. Just teasing you. What have your experiences been with identifying and using mentors within your organization to help you with your careers?
I guess I don't know if any of you all know Dr. Darnold here. So I went through the first Creighton Leadership U class a couple of years ago. And as I learned a lot from him about mentors. And one of the things I thought was really helpful is that you might have a mentor at work that's somebody that you really value and trust and you can go to for guidance or questions. But it's equally important to have a mentor outside of work, either in your volunteerism or your personal life, that you really can go to and get advice from, or lessons learned and that kind of thing. So it's not necessarily just a work or career mentor inside or outside your organization, but think broadly when you think of mentors. And it shouldn't just be one, it should be a few key folks.
I study mentoring through my entrepreneurship and job creation work. And one thing I find is there's a lot of experiential mentoring, and that's okay, but that's not great. A good mentor should really understand the strengths and the wiring of the mentee. Just me standing here telling you how I did it is probably of little to no value, because we're wired differently, so your journey is going to be different. A good mentor will do two things. They'll help you replay your victories, because for you to have high well-being and ultimately live a great life, you always want to be replaying your victories. Hopefully that's not a high school sports game or something. It's, you want to keep having bigger victories as you move through life, but you want to always replay your victories and have someone help you do that, and someone who can reaffirm your strengths. Again, I'm a Gallup guy, so I have to say this stuff, but when you operate in an area of your strengths, life's better and you don't beat the dog.
Okay, we're good. We'll have a few more questions and we'll open it up to the audience for questions. What tips do you have for college students in how to give presentations in the workplace, and or maybe how do they behave in departmental meetings or corporate events?
Okay, I'm going to go first. Okay, so how do you give good presentations? Well, let me tell you what, that's a fleeting thing. You got to practice, you got to practice, you got to practice. If you don't prepare going into a big meeting, then good luck. You may do really well one or two times, but one of those times you're going to fall flat on your face. And I mean, our chairman would be seen in his hallway walking back and forth, basically giving his presentation. He'd walk into people's offices and go, "Hey, how does this sound?" And that is absolutely something you should do. So think of it. If you're going to interview for a job, what do? You prepare, you practice, you get a couple questions, whatever. Why would you do anything different if you're presenting yourself to a group of people? On the receiving end, we are attached to our phones. It's as simple as that. We are attached to our phones, and if you can't spend half an hour detached from your phone while someone is talking to you, then you have big issues. And don't think that because I'm attached to I love my phone. I text people all day long. I got all kinds of things going on, but I know when there's a time and a place to stop. And if someone is constantly reminding you, like, put down your phone, you've got a problem, and call for help.
The practice is awesome. Really nail, if it's the public speaking or even just a presentation in front of leadership, nail your first 5 minutes, because that'll give you a confidence to roll on. The first 5 are critical. Our chairman used to go around the world and practice his stuff. You know, practice in safe environments. I always do my new material outside of the country. And one thing, I laid the biggest egg in this community like 6 months ago, because I tried to give someone else's presentation. Someone was in a bind, and I said, sure, I'll do it. And that's not ever good. At least for me, it's got to be your material. It's got to be your stuff. It's really hard if somebody else built the PowerPoint or built the deck or whatever it is. So make it your own, and it'll go a lot smoother.
Something that I see happen a lot with younger talent, and it's just probably more experience-based, is when you're giving a presentation, so what is the question that I always find myself asking. Okay, so you present all this great data, all these great ideas. Okay, so what do you want me to do? So what does this mean? So what are you recommending? So keep that in mind. So what?
We had a brief conversation before the panel started in terms of being on time. Can you maybe talk a little bit about that and what that means to being on time to meetings?
You should be on time.
What does that mean?
That means early, and it's a sign of respect. It's you know, if you're going to be late, traffic, things do happen, but it's more important than you think. I think on time means early.
So I'm the youngest of 5, and we have like my oldest brother and my oldest sister are perpetually late. And it's like we like, oh, they're the late ones in the family. Ha, funny, ha ha. It's like that is something that pervades, and it's like, oh yeah, so and so, they're always late to meetings. Like that's not a good thing to be known as. And so even if like you describe yourself as like, yeah, I'm always late, and you think it's like a quality that's endearing, it's not endearing. There's nothing endearing about that. And so I mean, and I'm so guilty of being late to meetings when I shouldn't be, and it's under my control. And it's like, even like listening to myself talk, I'm like, I'm such a hypocrite. Like there are times when I tell my team you got to be on time, and then I walk in late to a meeting an hour later. And it's like, if this isn't something you hear today and then you'll practice for the rest of your life, it takes work. And sometimes it's just a simple reminder, like a 3-person panel, to go, you know, God, Pat, you got to probably be on time a little bit more often. And I'm probably exacerbating how much I'm late, but there's enough times that I can control it that I should be there on time. And that's it. On time is early.
What advice do you have for interns or young professionals who may be under 21 or over 21 when it comes to work-related happy hours or receptions or events where alcohol is served?
Don't get drunk. Don't be foolish. You know, it's okay to have a beer or a glass of wine if that's what you like, but that goes for 50-year-old executives too, by the way. It's not just young professionals. You don't get those moments back. There's a time and a place to maybe let loose, and everybody lives their own life, but know the time and the place. I think we've all seen people that didn't heed that advice, and we all remember. We're not gonna say their names or anything, but don't let that be you.
Yeah, spring break still exists at work. It's just not like an approved spring break. Like you'll go to like a offsite or something, and so and so is just getting hammered at the event, and you're like, gosh, I didn't realize this was such a party. Well, it's not. Just so and so decided to just take advantage of all the free drinks. And trust me, that doesn't play well at the water cooler on Monday afterwards. And I think it's understanding your boundaries. If you're not 21, don't drink. Even though I've been in college before, I know how that works. And then if you're over 21, use your brain. It's like you all pay a lot of money to come to school here. So hopefully you're intelligent enough to realize that you shouldn't have 10 beers at a work event, or even 5 beers at a work event. You should have 1 or 2, and that's it.
All right, last question, and we'll open it up. Any advice on navigating company politics or adversity?
So I like to say that you are bound to fail. You will fail in your career. I've failed so many times, and it does build character. I mean, it's all those cliche things, right? It builds character, and you don't know what you're really made of until you fail. Blah blah blah. Like all of those things are true, but I'd say the best thing that you can do, and especially working at a place like UP, we have a very defined corporate culture. It's obvious what politics work and which ones don't, and so it's understanding that, being open to that, but not letting it consume you, because really at the end of the day, you are your own individual. Um, but if you can understand that this is going to be a 20, 30, 40-year career, which, working at UP, there are so many people that have had 40-year careers. That is so abnormal with our generation to work at a place that long. I've been there for 8 years, and I'm probably going to go on 40 years because I love it and it's a great place to work. But that's not something that I necessarily started with. And if you keep that kind of long-term idea of what your career is in mind, you know that you'll fail along the way, but generally it will prepare you for something better in the future.
I've lost a lot of money for Gallup in the past. People said, you don't know what it's like running a nonprofit. I said, oh, yes, I do. I ran Latin America for 10 years. It was one of our largest nonprofit divisions in our history. And the reason I survived a lot of very expensive learning around the world, and I'm very proud of this, I wear this on my sleeve and very publicly, is my ethics. When my love for ethics was really established when doing business in highly unethical places. And my board, my leadership knows we don't bribe, we don't do side contracts, we don't give expensive Christmas presents. We've lost a lot of deals. I've had to close offices because we couldn't compete profitably. But I promised them early in my career that they'd never read about Gallup or myself or anything under my leadership in the Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, on the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. So you can make those mistakes if you're if you're operating in an ethical way. The minute you make a big mistake and you've got cracks in your ethics, you're done.
It is being video recorded, yeah.
So, as new to the workforce, I would say regarding politics, you really need to find a few people that you trust, that appear to be strong and have strong political savvy and tons of respect, and take your cues from them. I think it takes time to learn each culture and time to learn what's expected or accepted in any organization. So for me on that, I would just say find somebody you trust and who's respected, and I would comment on your ethics comment that there is nothing more important than that.
Hey, Jeremy, I just want to add one thing. So I feel pretty confident that I'm going to be at UP for a long time, but I work with a lot of people that are in that miserable class. And yeah, they may just be generally miserable people, but sometimes work is not the right fit. Where you work is not the right fit. And so I'm going to use accounting majors because I wasn't one. But some of you are going to be accounting majors. You're going to go get your CPA and you're going to start doing public accounting, and you're going to go, God, I hate this. And I'm not doing that to be mean to public accountants. I'm just saying I have probably 4 friends that started it, didn't like it. And the ones that said, you know what, that's enough. I'm going to go and do something different because this doesn't make me happy. It doesn't, I don't come to work to, every day thinking like you should be happy at work. Bar none, you should be happy at work. You should have friends at work. I mean, you spend so much time there. Why would you not want to be happy? And so don't be afraid if you get into something that 6 months in, 12 months in, 12 years in, if you ever get to the point of where you're not happy, walk away, because a lifetime of unhappiness is not worth the money. It just isn't.
Any questions from the crowd?
I think it was Todd talked about how only 1 in 10 managers have those inherent qualities to lead effectively. What do those look like? How can we recognize those in managers above us to learn from them and maybe someday embody them ourselves?
Great question. And I mean, that's Gallup data. That's not my opinion. And again, they got there for just the manage. It's inherent. I won't name this company, but before Gallup, I worked at a big phone company based out of New Jersey. And I was a really good sales guy, and my career path was to be sales manager. And the last thing I wanted to do was wake up every day and worry about somebody else. I was kind of focused on my own path. I haven't managed people at Gallup ever, and I love it. So, you know, a great manager wakes up and cares about your development, about your success, and they individualize because you're wired differently than you. You might all be in the same role, but you're going to achieve success differently. So a great manager knows how to set outcomes-based, set performance and recognition around outcomes as opposed to process. If you guys are all in sales positions, you're going to get there on the golf course. You're going to get there by great proposals. You're going to get there through relationships. You're going to get there through because you have product knowledge. You're all different. So great managers can individualize. The Gallup theme is individualization. It's the rarest one in our database. They know how to recognize. Everybody wants recognition differently. You can usually ask a few probing questions and figure out if their focus is on your success and development or theirs. There's a ton of cliche stuff out in LinkedIn and Facebook and everything about this, but what is it? Managers are thinking about today and you, and leaders are thinking about tomorrow. Those are very different roles, managers and leaders, so you want to flesh those out. It's a good question.
Okay, so it's always good to show interest in the position, and I think it's fine to send a note or leave a voicemail or a call, try to get a hold of your recruiter. I feel like it might be a little creepy if you do that to the hiring manager because they're thinking, okay, well, they don't know me yet. I haven't met them. Yes, I'm scheduled to meet with them. I'm busy. I've got to run my day job, you know. So I think following up with the recruiter is great beforehand. And then afterwards, I would say once you've met the manager, it's completely appropriate to follow up with them. I know that a lot of managers are busy, so they might appreciate a personal handwritten note. That doesn't happen very often anymore, hint, hint. Just handwritten notes go a really long way and shows your interest in the position and the time that it takes to do that, I think will serve you well. So that would be in terms of follow up after the fact would be appropriate. So, Pat, would you add?
Yeah, so I love people that are geeked out about UP because it gives me someone to talk to. But I would say like an appropriate level of interest is, talking about the job, asking good, inquiring questions, like particularly at career fair environments. You can never be too over communicative. I would say for me, I don't recruit full time, so I have kind of a full time job in addition to the recruiting. And so for me, you'll know when I'm kind of done with the interaction because my email won't say, please call me with any additional questions. And that should be your cue, is that if I'm not saying, hey, call me or let me know if you have any other questions or anything like that, like those are not just pleasantries that we put at the end. Like if I end it and say thanks, that's probably it. And you should know, you should take that as, okay, that's it. But I think, the zealousness that people have for companies is wonderful, and we should encourage more of it because it inspires loyalty. Frankly, it inspires me. It's like, gosh, I work at a great place, and sometimes it's easy to get caught up in the melee of the work and stuff like that, and you go, gosh, look how excited these people are to be interviewing, coming to work at a place that I work at. I should have that same kind of admiration for the company that I work for, and it's great to see.
Too obvious for Creighton students, but in the old days when I did hire around Latin America, one of my first questions was always, what do you know about Gallup? And I knew whether that was going to be a 5-minute interview or a 5-hour interview based on how they got that. In today's world, it's so easy to not only on the internet, but talk to people, know what the issues are, be smart, or you're done. I would think that still holds true. Good question. What are some other ones?
When you were talking about the handwritten notes and everything, serious question, you have like the handwriting of a third grader and it looks unprofessional, then is it better to type or is handwritten almost better?
Handwrite it. You can slow down and get it across. That goes along. I was cheering when you were saying that because, and even not in job interviews, but if I'm with someone senior to me, really appreciated our conversation. Thanks for your time. Get yourself some stationery. Have Gallup stationery. Have personal stationery. It costs, I don't know what a stamp is, 44 cents. It goes a long, long way. Don't do those on email. That's uncool.
Yes. Two. Go ahead.
All right.
Ladies first.
All of you guys mentioned the important aspect of having a mentor. Do you have any advice on how to ask someone to be your mentor, or is this something we should wait to kind of develop and then follow up?
So we, at UP, we pair people with mentors early on, but that's a forced mentorship, right? So you can go to lunch and that could be the most awkward lunch you've ever had in your life. And I've had a couple of those. But I would say the best probably forum is, if you're young and you're in these environments where you're meeting people and you say, hey, can we get coffee sometime? If I just, I had some things I want to run past here. Can we get lunch sometime? And then you go to that lunch and God, it's a great lunch. And then you go, hey, I'd love to do this again sometime. And maybe next quarter you say, let's go get coffee this time if you had lunch last time. And that's how you build a mentorship. You don't even have to ask, because it just happens. And I make it sound really simple, but be cognizant of it and you're more likely to find the right connection.
It's really two-way. I think I mentor some younger associates, and I know I am mentored by some community leaders and folks in the office, and never once has the word mentor come up. It's just kind of a natural thing. But we used to call them career boards at Gallup, and we used to pay for your lunch, and you had 5 people, and as you said earlier, really good, not just work. I mean, live community. I have a community mentor. I think Jeremy knows who that is. Different, and they change through life. Young parents have different issues than old guys like Pat and all that.
So the only thing I would add is I have a lot of people that come to me either within the community or within our organization that say, hey, who should I ask to be my mentor? And so my question is always, well, what are you trying to get out of it? Like, what are you looking for? What do you want to learn? And that's how I either send them on the path to discover who their own mentor should be, or potentially make suggestions if it makes sense.
What do you want to think alike? This Kristen's follow-up question. Thank you, Kristen.
We don't have any last minute questions.
Somebody just told me this the other day, so I want to share it. Sure. Clinical depression is when your expectations and your reality are too far away from each other. So as you guys are moving through life, it's good to have stretch goals and dreams, but keep it real. Have a plan B. I'm really involved with this beautiful place called Jesuit, and every one of those beautiful boys wants to be a professional basketball player. But at Jesuit, we call it Plan B in case your knee goes out, in case that NBA career is not going to pan out. But I say that flippantly, but I try to, the clinical depression is when your expectations are too far away from your reality. So keep working to keep those two as close to each other as you can, and life's better.
Okay, so one other thing I want to add is I got asked to move twice when I first started at UP. I got asked to move twice. Both times to Texas. I thought Texas was this horrid place. I'm a Husker fan and a Jay fan. I'm a Jaysker. Yeah, I know. But I just thought Texas was this terrible place to live, and I never wanted to go there because Texas people are miserable. Sorry if there's anyone from Texas here. Oh gosh, I see it in the back. Oh my Lord. I don't feel that way anymore. I promise you. But seriously, I mean, I'm born and raised in Omaha. And my life has been in Omaha. Gosh, my life is like a story down Dodge Street. Like I lived on Dodge. I went to school on Dodge. Like my whole life is on Dodge Street. And so I just didn't think that there was anything else good outside of Omaha. Well, let me tell you what. I got the internal fortitude to tell my vice president that I was ready to move. And he goes, I think I might have something for you. And I'm at a customer event. I'm with Anheuser-Busch and their malting company at our corporate castle in St. Louis. And I'm having the greatest time of my life, and the job posting comes out, and it's in Little Rock, Arkansas. And I'm like, you've got to be freaking kidding me. And of all the places that I thought I didn't want to move, like that I could move on the network, Arkansas was not one of them. Arkansas ended up being 2 of the best years of my life. And for those of you that have come from another place, you know that this is a risk and getting outside of your comfort zone. And I would say for those of you that are from Omaha or from Nebraska or from Iowa, and this is not that much of a stretch for you, find a way to push yourself. And if that's moving somewhere else or trying something different, the rewards are enormous, personally and professionally. And I just cannot stress enough how important it is to take a few risks in your life. And if that's a matter of, hey, I'm going to take 3 weeks off before I go work and I'm going to go travel the world, go do that. If that means I'm going to go move to Little Rock, Arkansas, do that too. Because, excuse me, I'm not getting choked up. But I mean, I cannot stress that enough, how important that has been in my life. And, you know, that's something that I hope you guys take away. If I said anything today, do that.
I have 2 random quotes. So one is, I just read an article that said people graduating today will have 27 different jobs throughout their career. And all I can say is, whoa. The other thing I would say, people don't leave their jobs, they leave their managers.
That's a Gallup.
Oh, excuse me, I'm going to give Gallup credit.
That's our thing. We write that in books. It's
Totally
totally true.
Totally.
Thank you all for your time. Can we give our panelists a nice round of applause? This concludes our evening. Thank you.